Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News Refresh on Arizona PBS. I'm Serena Raboyne. Thank you for joining us. Healthcare workers here in the Valley are expected to get the COVID-19 vaccine this week. Those in nursing homes will be the second group to get vaccinated, according to the state's plan. Governor Doug Ducey toured the COVID-19 vaccine point of distribution yesterday. The governor pleaded for Arizonans to get vaccinated.
And today we have another ask. To please get the vaccine when it's available to you. Public health experts can't overstate the importance of this. I cannot overstate the importance of this. We need Arizonans to step up and get the vaccine if we want to stop the spread of this virus. It's our best shot at returning to normalcy.
The governor also announced that the state will be providing the Arizona Department of Health Services $15 million for public health emergency needs. Republican Representative Debbie Lesko is quarantining after being exposed to someone who later tested positive for COVID-19. This isn't a first for Lesko either. She spent 2 weeks in quarantine in mid-November as well. She later tested negative for the disease. In a statement yesterday, Lesko said, quote, "I am healthy and have no symptoms, but have been advised by the attending physician of the United States Congress to quarantine. Though I will not return to Washington, D.C. this week for the votes in the House, I remain committed to addressing the needs of the people of Arizona's 8th Congressional District from my home in Peoria." The FBI Phoenix Field Office has issued its first seeking information poster in the Navajo language. The poster is related to a homicide case on the Navajo Nation in Arizona. It advertises a reward of up to $5,000 for information leading to an arrest. Officials are looking for the person responsible for the 2013 killing of Caldwell Dwayne Smith. Several cities in the Valley are not following Phoenix's lead when it comes to shutting down youth sports tournaments, as COVID-19 numbers continue to rise. The Phoenix City Council made the decision to cancel all tournaments on December 2nd, but cities like Mesa, Gilbert, Scottsdale, Glendale, and Avondale have all continued to allow the games. Some cities are still booking new tournaments, while others are just fulfilling the ones already been scheduled. A recent executive order from Governor Doug Ducey requires the cities to review the safety precautions taken by the tournaments, publicly post them, and send a copy to the state health department. The longest-serving sheriff in Arizona, Tony Estrada, is retiring in January. Cronkite News reporter Delaney White reports on Estrada's reflection on his many years in office.
After 53 years in law enforcement, including more than 27 leading the sheriff's office in Santa Cruz County, Tony Estrada is retiring.
I was born in July, the 7th month. I'm on my 7th term, and I'm 77 years old. So 7 seems to be my lucky number.
Estrada is the oldest and longest-serving sheriff in Arizona. The lifelong Nogales resident immigrated from Sonora, Mexico when he was a child.
We survived, and we came from very humble beginnings into the United States, and we were blessed to be able to do that.
Starting his career in law enforcement in 1966, Estrada was hired as a patrol officer and later decided to run for supervisor. But his friends thought he was better suited for a different role.
He said, "You know what you should be doing? What you know how to do good. Run for sheriff."
Initially unsure of whether he should run, his wife's support gave him the final push.
I set up an appointment with the sheriff at that time, Alfonso Racamonte. Sat down in the old building, and I told him, "You know what, I'm going to run for sheriff. I don't think I'm going to beat you, but I just need to know for myself if people feel like I've done a good job."
And the people do think he has done a good job, electing him 7 times. Over the years, Estrada has seen many different issues in the town of Nogales, but the recent separation of children from their parents stands out to him as one of the most upsetting.
That, to me, has got to be one of the cruelest things that you can do. That's traumatic for him. It's harmful for him. And if you don't have any sense of that, there's something very, very wrong with the people that are pushing for that. They still don't know where their parents are, and the children are still lost.
But that isn't the only problem worrying Estrada.
The other thing that I thought was cruel is that razor wire, that concertina razor wire, about 6 strands of them. And I tell people, because I'm very disturbed and bothered by it, I tell them, you know what? We treat livestock better than we treat human beings. We don't put razor wire on livestock, but we've done it with human beings. That is how low we have come in this country under this current administration.
Estrada feels that these practices are inhumane.
Women in particular, they're strong. They know, or they're told, you know what, you're going to be sexually assaulted. And in some cases, they'll give them birth control pills, okay? So knowing that the only thing they have is their body, and they're willing to sacrifice that for their children, to me, that is a good mother. That is a mother that cares about that child.
Estrada believes these people should not be demonized.
Those are the good people that I think are good for America. And we're turning them back and demonizing them. It's not right, it's not fair, but like I said, not everybody can come over.
Despite dealing with many challenges throughout the years, Estrada feels lucky to have been able to serve the people of Santa Cruz County for so long.
Or they asked me if you ought to buy a lottery ticket. I said I did, but it didn't give me anything. But I said I've had all the luck in the world.
Delaney White, Cronkite News.
Estrada is a critic of President Donald Trump's restrictive immigration and border policies. His successor, James Hathaway, who was elected on November 3rd, will take office in January. Coming up on Cronkite News, we follow the journey of two artists in the Valley who found solace in their art during the pandemic. We'll take a look at their chosen art forms and find out how art heals them. And on Break It Down, the mental toll on teens during the pandemic. And welcome to Cronkite News Refresh on Arizona PBS.
Well, the dry spell has ended. Rain finally fell over the valley last night.
Here's what's trending today.
I'm with Sarandon and Amna.
Good evening, and welcome to Cronkite News Refresh on Arizona PBS.
Hey, I'm Rick Steves. I don't go anywhere without my passport. Thanks to PBS Passport, you can watch all my travel specials. This exclusive streaming service is just for our members. Not only can you see all my shows, but you can see thousands of hours of your favorite public television shows. Become a member today.
Years after Prescott resident Kayla Mueller was kidnapped and killed by terrorists in Syria, her parents continued to push her story to the public. Marcia and Carl Mueller were in the spotlight as President Donald Trump's State of the Union guest in January, and as speakers at the Republican National Convention this summer. And again this week with a flurry of news about Kayla. I followed the latest news this week.
It's been overwhelming.
That's how Prescott resident Carl Mueller describes the past few days for him and his wife Marcia, who have seen a flurry of news about their slain daughter Kayla. This comes after 7 years of not knowing what exactly happened to Kayla, who was killed by terrorists in Syria.
We don't really know what happened to Kayla. We don't know how she was killed, who killed her. The only proof we have of her death is from ISIS.
In 2013, Kayla was doing humanitarian work in the Middle East when she was captured by the Islamic State, beaten, abused, and killed in 2015. Her body still has not been recovered. On Wednesday, federal officials indicted 2 men for their part in the death of Kayla and 3 other American hostages in Syria.
So it's important that we're bringing them to justice. Appreciate that the administration continues to lift up Kayla's story.
On Wednesday night, Kayla's story was brought to a national stage at the vice presidential debate. The Muellers were in the debate audience at the invitation of Vice President Mike Pence.
But notably, America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
The Muellers flew with Pence on Air Force 2 yesterday to Arizona, where he was campaigning, and they attended an event honoring Kayla. That event was to unveil a painting symbolizing the military raid that killed ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, a raid codenamed Operation Kayla Mueller.
We are here today because your daughter is revered and beloved the world over. And thanks to you, her legacy will live on forevermore.
Besides Governor Ducey, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien attended, and Day said the opening prayer.
And for me, by bringing her story forward, I hope we all can refuse to allow suffering of our neighbors, of our fellow Americans, and of people around the globe to be normal, to be something we accept.
The portrait will go on display at the Arizona State Capitol. Carl Mueller says he hopes the artwork will
inspire people and the leaders of our country who see it to learn Kayla's story in hopes that this will never happen to another American family.
The only televised Arizona Senate debate took place last night, featuring Republican Senator Martha McSally and Democratic candidate Mark Kelly. Stephanie Rosales reports both were asked questions regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, healthcare, and border security.
4 moderators lobbied questions at the 2 candidates. Everyone socially distanced and between plexiglass due to COVID. And questions about the pandemic started off the debate. Arizona PBS hosted the debate with moderators from the Arizona Republic, KJZZ, and Arizona Public Media. The first question, how the current administration handled the coronavirus pandemic.
Appreciate that at the end of January, the president made a decisive action in order to stop travel from China, something that was highly criticized.
But we've got a serious crisis on our hands. We've got a public health crisis, which spurred an economic crisis. And both of these things have been made worse by a crisis of leadership.
Senator Martha McSally, however, avoided the question as to whether she was proud of her support for President Trump.
Is that a yes or a no for President
Trump? Putting legislation on President Trump's desk.
So you're proud of your support for President Trump?
You look at the legislation we put on his desk, it's to cut Arizona taxes.
With issues covered related to health care, Kelly said he is in support of public health care. He also called McSally out for not being in support of pre-existing conditions and against the Affordable Care Act.
Arizonans already know they can't trust Senator McSally when it comes to health care. She's voted on 4 separate occasions to undermine or eliminate those protections.
I'm fighting for more options for people. Buy insurance across state lines, allow small businesses to band together so they have more choice. Let's provide that taxpayer resources to backstop those with the highest expenses, and let's find more options that protect people with pre-existing conditions.
Both candidates agreed to stronger border security, but Kelly felt the money could be used elsewhere.
To build a wall for 2,000 miles of border, $20 million a mile, those resources could be used for the technology. It could be used for more Border Patrol agents on the border.
Kelly also added that he supports DACA and believes there should be a legal path to citizenship. When asked to touch on this topic, McSally agreed, but said another issue deserves more attention.
But we cannot just address that issue. We've got to address the root issues as well of why we're in this situation in the first place. That's why it's so important for us to continue to secure our border.
In closing, Kelly asked Arizonans for their vote to work together to solve the major issues surrounding the country.
We need independent leadership focused on solving the problems we face, like beating this virus and rebuilding our economy and lowering the cost of health care and prescription drugs.
In her final remarks, McSally explained that this election will decide the Senate majority and asked for 3 more debates before Election Day. Stephanie Rosales, Cronkite News. Senator Martha McSally and Mark Kelly will both participate in a pre-recorded candidate forum on Univision the week before the election. Stephanie Rosales, Cronkite News.
For Hispanic Heritage Month, we followed the journey of 2 artists in the Valley who found solace in their art during the pandemic. Each artist gave us a glimpse into their chosen art form and explained how art heals them. This performance is called Good Trouble Bucket. It represents change. Gloria Granados and Joan Barron created the performance using important symbols. Water for liberation, spreading clay on a fence representing the creation of a new way of life, because they are tired of what they see.
Every day we're hearing on the news of all these terrible things that continue to happen to immigrants. And it's just really unjust to take advantage of a person's labor and so easily just dismiss them.
Pita Juarez has a new approach to life.
Oh, what kind of Mexican are you?
Her heart is behind the scenes. She spends most of her time working on her films. You Racist, Sexist Bigot is one of them.
I've always been the type of person to take on more than I should, and that brings me a lot of stress. But the things that I take on are all things that I'm super passionate about.
Both artists live in the valley.
The most important object that
Granados is from Guanajuato, Mexico, and Juarez from Guatemala. Coronavirus has affected the country in different ways, and according to the CDC, mental health outcomes are worse in racial/ethnic minorities. A 2010 study conducted by the National Institute of Health found that creative engagement can decrease anxiety, stress, and mood disturbances. Rhiannon Chavez is a therapist who says she knows it firsthand.
Art therapy is probably one of my favorite things to use, especially if they're willing to kind of explore with you and actually really start thinking of it as more abstract.
Granados and Juarez say art is a powerful method to combat this issue. For me, art therapy looks like dancing, but for filmmaker Pita Juarez, her chosen art form sometimes brings stress.
So it's like a weird balance.
For Granados, besides releasing stress, art also helps her to express her heritage.
Creating art and having it be about something that is so personal for me has been a healing practice for me.
It also brings me so much joy when I'm editing and creating stories, and I'm just like, oh, this is exactly what I worked so hard for.
For Sarah Wordsworth, Cronkite News. Juarez is currently working on a new film about environmental racism. Granados will continue to use her art as a way to tell her story, and Chavez plans to implement even more art-based practices in her work as a marriage and family therapist.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.